So you guys are going to DJI, and you know DJI owns 70% of the global market, yes? Okay. So why China? Why are you here? Do you have business here in China already? Yeah, how many? Okay, some, actually maybe 1/3 only. Okay, let me give you the broad picture, okay? So if you look at it macroly, the world has 7 billion people, right? Did you know 3.7 billion? That means more than half of the world's population is inside the circle, right? And China is this black chicken in the middle that nobody understands. Okay? And Hong Kong is right in the middle of this circle. I'm actually from Hong Kong originally. And interestingly, inside the circle, there are 1/3 is China, 1/3 is India. Anybody from India? Yeah, okay, 2 of you. And then there's the rest of you. Okay? And it's been predicted, depending on how the US trade war goes, China might surpass the US in 2025, okay, in terms of GDP. And amazingly, China has actually risen 850 million people out of poverty in the past 30 years, since the opening of China in 1978, okay? Compared to all the other BRIC countries, right? And did you know recently Dyson, the guy who invented James Dyson, became the richest person in UK because of China. Yeah, it's hair dryers and curlers. So just a little bit about myself. I use this diagram to show this picture to show myself. I'm from Hong Kong. Hong Kong has the history of really being a British colony for 100 years. So I consider myself, I'm like half-half. Because I actually lived in the States for 12 years and came back for 17 years. So my brain is actually half-half. So we see things a little differently, maybe. Actually, by the way, that's a real building in Hebei. It's for the cinemas, like for movies. So it's half east, half west. So my company is called Kai's Innovation. We help a lot of foreign companies strategize the products for the China market. We help actually a lot of tech companies also. Google is our client. We help like Airbnb, Intel, Siemens, Motorola. And also, I know there are some investors here. We also train up tech startups to understand the Chinese users so that they can scale their business here. So I'm a mentor of a lot of accelerators. This is my background on one page. I grew up in Hong Kong, lived in the US for 12 years, came back for 17 years. So while I was in the US, I was in New York, San Francisco, Silicon Valley, Pennsylvania. During the first dot-com boom and bust, so that was in the 90s. Okay, I came back for 17 years, and I'm stationed in Hong Kong because we're outside of the Great Firewall. Otherwise, it's going to be hard to communicate with a client. I also went to Chung Kong Business School. I don't know if you know this school. It's one of the non-government-owned business schools. Actually, it's funded by the Chung Kong Foundation, which is Lee Ka-shing's foundation. I also teach at Polytechnic University on customer experience innovation for executives. Okay, so that's my background. But and we've been to many, many, many homes in China, like first, second, third tier cities. How many of you have been to third tier cities in China? Like Shijiazhuang and all these Ningbo area. How about Jinhua? Jinhua is where the hams come from, the Chinese ham. And I was told by them that it gets exported to France for the prosciuttos. Who knows? So we've been to many homes in China when there was still one-child policy. But 2 years ago, it changed to two-child policy, right? And we've been to many Chinese corporations, tech corporations. When we went to these companies, even Le TV was around. They don't exist anymore. Le Shi, right? Okay. Because we organize UX tours, and now we do organize executive trips, and also to help your company strategize for the Chinese market, understanding the users. Okay, so how is China different? I'm sure you have many, many questions in your head, right? So the thing is, most of the world uses the Western tech ecosystem, right? Have you guys been struggling with VPN last night? Nod your head. Yeah. Have you had any success yet? Use BetterNet. So China has this completely different tech ecosystem than the rest of the world. Okay? All of you know BAT, right? Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent? You're in Asia, of course, you know that. Okay, how about the next square? Douban. You know, Douban has 100 million users. Some people haven't even heard of it. Okay? Yeah. And you know, there's also Dianping, or Shenzhen does not exist anymore. But Dianping is where it's like the Yelp, you know, you go and find restaurants. So the thing is, because China's tech ecosystem is so different, it changes everything. Okay, so I'm going to highlight top 10 differences. Number one, it's BAT, not FANG. You know what FANG is?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent. You know, the rest of the world is Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Google, right? And in China, actually there's an equivalent of all these products that you are familiar with in the West, like PayPal, Dropbox, Twitter, Spotify, but like Alibaba owns a lot of them. Have you heard of Alimama? There's Alibaba, there's Alimama, okay? There's AliYun, like Ali Cloud, right? There's AliZilla, which is like Alibaba's news. So a lot of these companies, I think many people haven't even heard of it, right? Who's outside of China. So we've been to Alibaba in Hangzhou. Well, now I think it's kind of hard to get into these companies unless you're a big shot. But this was like back in like 2014. So this is in Hangzhou. You need some pants, but it looks like Silicon Valley, their campus. We went to Baidu, and if you look at the logo, the Baidu logo, it's like a paw, right? Okay, imagine the paw three-dimensional. This is like the employee's resting place, which is the Baidu, the logo paw like in 3D. Okay, it looks like an igloo. This is WeChat in Guangzhou. WeChat belongs to Tencent, right? How many of you downloaded? Janice asked you to download WeChat? Yeah, okay. If you downloaded, I'll show you a really cool feature. You can add 500 people in under 1 second. Yeah. So we went to WeChat, and then this is all the people in the world using WeChat Live. Wow. Tracked. Okay. Yeah. This is Tencent in Shenzhen, and they are doing smart city. They're not talking smart city. Okay, they're doing it already. So they will know which area has too many people, and you will get attention. Okay. Number two. Of course, if you have business in China, China is pretty much government-driven. You can't ignore that fact. Do you know what's the 3 T's that you can't talk about? Am I recorded? Okay, you can't talk about Tibet, Tiananmen, and Taiwan. Except in this room.
And all of your WeChat better be off as well.
But do you know why? Do you know why? Do you know why there's the Great Firewall? Anyone? No clue? Why?
Information.
Why?
Because probably biggest fear is probably the about the scene,
Okay, I'll give you some context. Okay. Yeah.
Civil unrest.
Why?
Why?
Yeah, I keep asking you why.
Oh, you destabilize the economy.
Why?
Well, then China can't become #1.
Okay, give me some context. You know China has 5 times the population of the US? 1.3 billion, right? US has 320 million, okay? So if I draw the parallel, an analogy, if US has like 2 18-year-old kids, China has 10 2-year-olds. Do you let your kid watch porn? Do you? I think that's the reason why. Because actually, China, amazingly has lifted 850 million people out of poverty. However, there's still 400 million who are, maybe illiterate or not like middle class. So, and 400 million is already more than the size of the population of the US. And if you look at history, but this is my interpretation, okay? If you look at history, China has been in war for like, unrest for 100 years, right? Even my grandmother's generation has been through war, right? Japanese invasion, and then there's the Cultural Revolution, and then there's like eight countries attacking China. So there's been a lot of unrest historically that I think China is pretty nervous about the country breaking up, especially managing so many people, right? So I think, and interestingly, the Great Firewall is not entirely to the top. Okay, it's not entirely blocked. If you are the educated class, you know how to use VPN, you can climb across it. You can. So it's kind of trying to prevent like the mass population who are uneducated not to do stupid stuff, okay? So you can still tweet. And I mean, like, you know, like a lot of internet companies, Western internet companies find it kind of hard to come in, but I think Facebook really wants to. Did you know Mark Zuckerberg can speak Mandarin?
Yeah.
He spoke for half an hour in Mandarin in Taiwan. Okay, so he really impressed the Tsinghua students, okay? And you know, Facebook has been trying to come in with this app called Colorful Balloons. However, they're not that successful. So actually, in fact, Google, a lot of people think Google is not in China. Do you think Google is in China? Yeah? No? Yes? Okay. Well, we help Google in China, so we know they're in China. So it's not that, you know, the government does not let you to come to China. It's about, like, are you willing to, you know, play with the rules? And do you understand the consumers enough to be competitive, right? Number 3, 5 times the speed. Maybe you know China is very fast. Okay, actually just 2 years ago, China was a different China. I'm sure 2 years later is going to be a different China. So if you move slow in China, you're going to be eaten up. The competition, because the population is 5 times bigger than the US, I would say competition is 5 times fiercer. Because there's so much more people like competing with you, right? Did you know even for, sanitary napkins, there are hundreds of brands if you go to Walmart here. Like with any product category, there is a lot of competition. Okay, and the reason is, so China is like a chicken. It looks like a chicken, right? With 5 times more the population than the U.S. U.S. looks like a piece of steak, right? And apparently we like to eat those meats. 1.4 billion people. So it's almost 5 times the size. And to show you the speed, WeChat only started in 2011. Okay? 4 years ago, when I was talking about China, they only had 800 million users. Now it's over 1 billion. Okay? So you can see, like, from 2011 to now, like 2018, like, you know, the number of users using. And if you're using WeChat, Alipay outside of China? Yeah, no, yeah. You see signs everywhere, though, right? Yeah. I know we have some Japanese here. Japanese? Okay. This is in Japan. I was in Japan last year. Guess where this is? This is my dad, by the way. We were in Thailand. This is Thailand. This is in Chinese. And I can use Alipay. Right? Guess where this is?
Sweden.
It's in Finland. Yeah, Finland. But obviously it's all Chinese, so it's actually catered for mainland Chinese traveling abroad. Right? I know some of you have hotels in Vietnam or in Korea. Mainland Chinese people traveling abroad, they use Alipay and WeChat Pay. So you probably have to cater to that. Okay? And to illustrate the speed, Xiaomi only started in 2010. I tell you a story. Back then, we have a client, they do vacuum cleaners, okay? 7 years later, they developed an advanced vacuum cleaner for the Chinese market. And I told them, 7 years later, when they came back, there's this company called Xiaomi that's already a $25 billion company. And they IPO'd. And they came coming up with robotic vacuum. Of course, Xiaomi has been accused of being copycat of everybody else. But if you look at them, they always say that they're not a hardware company, they're an internet company. And have you had the chance to go to Xiaomi store? You know, it's IoT for a very cheap price, right? Like a Mi Band is only, what, 15 US compared to like a Fitbit, right? However, recently you can see there's a lot of products that are addressing the China market needs. For example, the Blue Watch is a kids tracker. Why would you need a kids tracker? That's a lot of kidnapping in China, right? Also, air filter. Why is there air filter? There's also face mask, air pollution, right? And oh, we actually saw this around. This is like the 9-bot. It's Xiaomi actually bought Segway. Used to be a US company. They miniaturized the device, so it's a transportation device that you can see around. But it used to be a Segway, used that product for the police, right? This is really big, yeah. So if you have a chance, go to take a look at Xiaomi store, because I think it's fascinating. A lot of the products are super cheap. I know when I went to Brazil 2 years ago, people over there buy it too, from AliExpress. Yeah. So Chinese companies are no longer just inside mainland China, right? It's going abroad. Number 4, the China math. Okay, I call this the China math. We've been in business for 17 years, and time again, we have Western companies coming over with a product that is 8 times the price of a local competitor. All right? So a lot of foreign brands are unwilling to lower the price, thinking that they should be on the top tier 1 to 1 city, like Shanghai, Beijing, Shenzhen, Guangzhou, right? But look at the math. Have you guys heard of Pinduoduo? You know it IPO'd in New York? Do you know what it is? It's like a Groupon. Pinduoduo, you can group buy a lot of very cheap stuff, okay? And it grew very fast. It only started in 2015. And now they have a gross merchandise value of 260 billion RMB. But if you look at the numbers, look, like, this is China. Tier 1, 2, 3 cities. Projected in 2030, Tier 3 cities is 7 trillion US dollars. It's the fortune is at the bottom of the pyramid. It's not at the top of the pyramid. Okay? But I think a lot of foreign companies coming in, they only look at the tip top because they don't want to lower the price. Okay? So we have a medical client. I think it took them 10 years in China to realize that, and eventually they cut half of the features and lowered half of the price, and it sold really well. Okay? Because like the hospitals can't afford the European price. It's just that simple. If you go to Xiaomi, you know, one of these batteries is like 10 RMB, like 69 RMB. Okay? But Xiaomi is a $25 billion company, right? A lot of the products are like 100 like RMB, like that, in that price range. Have you heard of a app called Dedao? It's like an Udemy in the West. So you can do a 5-minute MBA, you know, listen to your talks. Look at the price. $199, that is RMB. That is 50 US? That's for a year. A year, okay? But then, secondly, look at the number on top. 100,000 subscribers. That equates to one speaker is making almost 20 million RMB. You know, one speaker. But on this platform, there are hundreds of speakers, right? I tell you a story, because we do a lot of research. We help Western companies in China meet end users in China. So we go to Chinese people's homes, right? So there's one couple. This was in Dalian, I think. I asked them, so what do you do? They said, we make shou bao, which is buns, okay, for birthday, Chinese birthday. And she said, oh, well, each day I take a profit of 1,000 RMB per store on WeChat. I was like, 1,000 RMB. In Hong Kong, 1,000 RMB, the three of us, dinner is gone, right? Okay. The whole profit of the one store is only 1,000 RMB. But her second sentence is, I have 60 stores in China. And then you do the math, right? 1,000 times 30 times 12 per year. And then, it's like a, $10 million business, RMB business. And there's no technology. They just make buns, okay? So we hear a lot of these stories in China. Some of you are in games, I know. We have some Japanese people. Sega? Yeah? Okay. So if you look at the gamers population, the China gamer population is 3.4 times the US. Yeah? And then globally, compared to all of the competitors, Tencent is actually number one. Even ahead of Sony, Microsoft, Apple, Google, NetEase, Electronic Arts, Nintendo. Of course, we have to go back to point number 2, the government drives, right? So what happened last year was the government said too many gaming apps that are not good for young kids. So all of a sudden, boom, dropped, right? But if you play by the rules, I mean, we know that the Chinese parents actually crave for games that are educational, right? What if you made educational games instead of like killing people games, right? Then it could do really well, right? All right, number 5, mobile first. Okay, we've encountered many Western companies when they come to China. They assume that everybody looks at the website. Even ebay.com.cn, well, hello, nobody does that anymore. Everybody's on mobile. Everybody's on WeChat. So these 30 apps in the Western market equals to 1 app in China. WeChat is called the super app. Yeah. And so you probably downloaded WeChat, and you can have access to WeChat Pay. However, so these are the 2 major wallets, right? So WeChat Pay and Alipay. However, unfortunately, if you're not from mainland China or you're not a Hong Kong resident who has a mainland Chinese bank account, you cannot use WeChat Pay. 2 years ago, when we were running out of trips, foreigners can still use it, but not anymore. I think they're trying to control the money outflow, so that's the way it is. But we're going to go to Hema with 20 of you, so we can show you how we can buy seafood, get it cooked right away, and you can actually get the food sent to your home in half an hour. So China is already ahead in fintech compared to the rest of the world. Actually, US is here, okay, in the middle. And have you heard about mini programs? Any of you? 1? Oh, okay. Now, interestingly, because we help companies like Google, right? Okay. So there's an assumption in the West that everything has to go through the App Store. No longer the case. In China, with mini programs, you can skip the entire App Store. So basically, mini program is actually going to an HTML site. So you don't and the reason why Chinese people like mini programs is because it doesn't take up storage on your mobile phone. And some of the lower tier cities, some of the mobile phones doesn't have a lot of storage, right? So, for example, you can, before you go to KFC, you can go on the mini program, okay? And you can open up the mini program, you can already order all the food, and before you step out the door, you can order it, and by the time you get there, it's ready for you. And you would have already paid with your WeChat Pay. Okay. Number 6, QR codes. Have you noticed? QR codes are everywhere. Everywhere in China. Have you tried the mobikes? Interestingly, 2 years ago, on the streets in China, there are 7 colors of bikes. at least. Now there's only 2. Because there was a bike sharing war, right? That went on, and then, fog, and then now it's like Mobike. OFO, I think, also not doing very well. So you can basically scan the bike and then get on, ride on it, and then just dump it wherever you go. And then it will calculate how much, and it's only 1 RMB for an hour. You can even tip your waiter, $3, 3 RMB, and you can rate him like an Uber. So you can say if he's good looking, if the food is good, if the environment is good. All right. Even beggars in China use QR because nobody uses cash anymore. Try using cash now. Nobody wants to take it. And for Chinese New Year, kids have QR code badges. So just scan and then give them the red packet, okay? It used to be in China, there's a practice of giving red envelopes where you put physical money in there and give it to people who are younger than you, right? So it's all digitized now, yeah?
By the way, will your slides stay available?
Yeah, I can put it on SlideShare and send it to you.
Thank you.
Okay. Number 7, face to pay. You can pay with your face. You don't need your wallet even. Okay, you don't need your WeChat Pay or Alipay wallet. You just need your face recognition, and you can buy food. So this is KFC's face recognition.
Face to get into a convenience store in China, where you can buy food through facial recognition technology. Using your face to buy food is already a reality. Here's one system that KFC and Chinese search engine giant Baidu implemented in China. KFC's system even remembers your face and food preferences, so it can better recommend you new products.
Okay, whether you like it or not is happening, okay? I'll explain why, okay, afterwards. So, Li Kaifu says that AI is going to be bigger in China than in the US. So he wrote this book called AI Superpowers, China, Silicon Valley, and the New World Order. Li Kaifu is actually also from Carnegie Mellon, where I studied in the US. And he did research in AI back in the 80s or 90s. So Baidu showcased 100 autonomous vehicles during Chinese New Year earlier this year.
Once China just made things for Western companies, now it's bidding to lead the world. This intricate dance for 100 driverless cars was staged by China's rival to Google, Baidu.
Okay. Have you heard of the Alibaba unmanned hotel, Flaizu? Is in Hangzhou. So you have these robots taking your suitcase, and there is an unmanned person hotel, so also face recognition. And you know that you shouldn't be jaywalking in China, right? If you try, you're going to be on the shame board. So crazy. Shame board. But interestingly, if you look at it, why? It actually works in China, because you know why? China is a collectivist culture, right? People's self-identity is shaped by the collective, not individualist. So face is really important. You know, like Guanxi and face, right? Saving face, right? So shaming actually works as law enforcement. Rather than, people actually don't adhere to rules, right? Chinese people are super flexible. So it's interestingly, if you dig deeper, a lot of this is cultural. And I'll talk about it in my last slide. And Sesame credit, if you download Alipay, you already have a credit score. So depending on how well you behave, meaning like did you pay on time, did you buy a lot of stuff, and then you have a credit score. It's by Alibaba's Ant Financial, so also score. So it's like the bank credit, but it's even more powerful than bank credit because Alibaba actually knows what you bought, where you've been, right? So the credit, so there's an upside and a downside. the upside is because they know how honest you are, how how willing you're to pay things on time, they can give you a loan in under 1 second. Like a bank loan in under 1 second, which you can't do in traditional banks, right? On the downside is, if you're not a good citizen, you could be preventing from flying first class, or preventing from being a party member, or your kid can't go to this school or that school. So, number 9. Black Mirror, right? People say. Number 9, O2O retail. Some of you are from retail, right? LVMH. Yeah. So actually, retail in China is going live stream now. Do you guys know live streaming?
Yes.
Okay. So and November 11th is the big shopping day. It used to be it's called Singles Day, but now you have to be single to buy. So China's Singles Day is already bigger than U.S. Black Friday and Cyber Monday combined. So this is like the Alibaba 2018 Tmall
It
sales.
was a record-breaking day for Chinese e-commerce giant Alibaba. Their annual Singles Day event raking in over $24 billion. It's the biggest online sales event in the world, outstripping the US version, Black Friday. Singles Day originally began as a novelty holiday to celebrate not being in a relationship, but it has evolved into a shopping bonanza that sees peak sales within the first few minutes of the 24-hour spending window.
Okay. So look at this. The orange one is Alibaba, right? This is 2016. Now, last year I think it's $35 billion US. This is US Cyber Monday and Black Friday. It's 5 times. Okay. The population is big in China. Okay, I'll show you live streaming in China and how people shop nowadays.
Live stream shopping is taking the Chinese market by storm.
It's the modern QVC. See this person? 6 a.m. busy time. How many people are watching?
17,830 people. With reported 425 million users as of July 2018, it's an immediate shopping experience where users engage with hosts marketing products in real time. Some hosts feature well-known luxury brands, but you can buy just about anything.
2017年，北美年收入大概5300来万。少年不知道3、2、1。
Okay, so it's not only in China. There's an app called Shop Shops where they go and do live stream in New York. So mainland Chinese customers can look at the live stream and buy clothes from New York like live, which is the next video.
今天呢是来到了我们在纽约特别喜欢的一家店。So they love walking into the store and showing that there's a presence and that it's a big space and there's a great energy. What happens is we all try on outfits.
You guys are on camera.
They loved seeing me in the product because I think, the owner, and like at the time I had bleach blonde hair, and for some reason her audience loved that. They would buy the whole outfit. Like I would just come on camera and all these like hearts and flowers and kisses, and wasn't it so satisfying? Yeah.
Okay. All right, number 10. So all this phenomena, right? And I know some people are like in awe, like how could this happen? And, with the privacy issues and like facial recognition, right? I bring it down to culture. I think culture can explain a lot of this. So if you look at Chinese culture, well, even like some of Asia, different Asian countries, right? Yin Yang, right? And it's a very different mindset than the Western 0 and 1, like right or wrong. My clients come to China and they're like, I don't know if I should be walking or not walking across the street because when it's red light, the cars still go. Okay, so I think the mentality here is very like nebulous. Like things can, like flow like water, right? It's not yes or no. The Great Firewall is not yes or no. It depends on who. And depends on when. Sometimes you can use WhatsApp or Facebook in South China, depends on when. But when it's like Beijing Olympics or Shanghai Expo, then you can't use it, right? So it's not black and white. So it's something that's very, very hard for Western cultures to understand. For those of you who are Eastern culture, you might understand a bit more about the, the flow idea, right? I have an article written up in this book called Understanding Your Users in the International chapter. And I came up with a model which I think can explain what's happening in China and how to develop for the Chinese market. Because if you look at our history, it's different, right? I can only comment on the US because that's where I spent most of my time in the 90s. If you trace everything back, we have the Confucian culture, right? Confucius, even in Japan or South Korea, right? And there's this hierarchy, right? Like obedience, right? Paying respect to elderly people, paying respect to your leaders, right? So that is why China can move so fast. Because if you debate, it's just like India, it's just gonna take much longer, right? In China, there's no debate. The boss says it, and it goes, right? In fact, Shenzhen 10 years ago, it wasn't this green. Right now, it's really green, right? Because they just said, make it green, and then it goes, right? I lived in California for a few years, and even the Caltrain can't go from San Francisco down to San Jose because every state disagrees, right? So it's authoritarian. In the U.S. they talk about democracy. I personally think it's good and bad at the same time. In China, not all men are equal. And it's okay. Did you know, okay, Hong Kong is a special administrative region. SAR, right? Hong Kong and Macau is special, okay? We have special treatment, okay? So not all men are equal. It's fine. In Chinese culture, the oldest person in the family has special treatment, okay? So, but this would not work in the US, like if you say Austin, Texas, and Hawaii is special, no, everybody would, riot, right? China is a relationship-oriented society. That's why all the guanxi and all that stuff, like, I scratch your back, you scratch my back, kind of thing, right? And business and personal kind of mixed up all the time. Yeah, in the US is not, right? And the whole concept of the Great Firewall is to maintain harmony. Chinese people consider, like, it's a whole family, right? Sorry, Taiwan, but that's how China thinks. I know there's Taiwan people here, but Chinese people think, your whole family, you can't be separated, right? But the Western culture is about truth and it's more philosophical, it's more about the self. So this is the 5 cardinal relationships, and it's set up by Confucius because there was 100 years of war before that, right? And it's about collectivism instead of individualism. And interestingly, if you read this book called The Geography of Thought, it talks about how Asians and Westerners think differently. And here's a little exercise, very small one. If you were to put 2 things together, the chicken and the cow, or the cow and the grass, or the chicken and the grass, which 2 would you put together? How many of you would put chicken and the cow together? Okay. How many of you would put the cow and the grass together? Okay, you guys are Asians. Try it with your friends. Not everybody would answer the same thing because cow and grass is relational thinking. This is categorical. This is animals and plants. This is relationship, right? Okay, so you're fit for China. Also take a look at Martin Jacks. I think he's very astute. He had a commentary. This book is called When China Rules the World. And he talks about China consider ourselves as a civilization state. 中华民族. Okay? Civilization doesn't mean it sits in a geography. There is Taiwanese Chinese, Singaporean Chinese, Hong Kongese Chinese, ABCs, right? American Chinese. all are Chinese, okay? So the definition is much bigger than a geography. That's why China wants Taiwan to be all part of it, okay? But then if you look at history, China is just returning to what it was. If you look at 2,000 years of history, you know, US didn't even exist in 1700s, right? China is one of the civilizations that did not, you know, lose its roots, right? It started all the way from 1 AD to now, and now is regaining its power or status. Okay, to wrap up, I actually wrote a book that's coming out in the next month on how to design and strategize for the Chinese market, which is a trillion market, right? And because we work with a lot of Western companies in China, we know how, like, what are the pitfalls, what mistakes they made, and in China you have to be super fast, and you have to do things a certain way, right? In order to understand the Chinese user. So if you're interested, you can go to my site, elaine-and.com.